This podcast may contain graphic and/or explicit content that may not be suitable for some listeners, especially kids like me. Listener discretion is advised.
You're listening to the Real Life Podcast, brought to you by the Thin Blue Line for Women. In this podcast, we open up and talk about real life issues as they relate to first responders. It's raw, it's real, and it's about time. I'm Tamara, your host. Thanks for joining me. Are you looking for Thin Blue Line gear? It's available on our website at thinbluelineforwomen.com. That's thinblueline4women.com. Show your support for law enforcement and get your Thin Blue Line gear today. Just click on shop at thinbluelineforwomen.com. Don't forget, you can listen to the Real Life Podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Radio Public, Breaker, Overcast, Pocket Casts, and on YouTube. Thank you for joining us. Today's interview is with Jim Russell. He's an artist, a retired law enforcement officer, a bicyclist, and an advocate for DUI prevention. We talk about his art, we discuss how he became a law enforcement officer, and finally, we discuss details of how his wife's son was killed in a drunk driving vehicle crash. So go grab your drink of choice, maybe a snack, and enjoy this episode with Jim Russell. Jim, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Oh, I'm so happy to have you. Your website, jimrussellart.com. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. That's right. Yeah.
I am going to read a quick clip from that, and then we'll go ahead and start your episode. I really liked it when I clicked on your website, and this is important for listeners to hear. It says, from artist to cop, to distant cyclist, to mental health advocate, to artist once again.
Yes.
That's I really like that. I thought usually I say, hey, tell me about yourself, but I don't really need to because that kind of says it all. So yeah. So go ahead and let's start at the very beginning and talk about your art. Like, when did you start doing art? Like, what age, what type of art, and et cetera? Just go ahead and roll with it.
I've been doing art my entire life. I've always loved doing art. I've always loved doing, drawing and all kinds of stuff. And the furthest back I can think about me really being interested in art and trying to really develop it was when I was about 5. And the first drawing I did that I really tried to do well on it was a drawing of Godzilla. And
Nice.
I remember I wasn't that great with it because I could only do his head, and I just made a building in front of his body because I couldn't do the rest. But that's as far back as I can remember, being about 5 years old.
Wow.
And but throughout my life, I always had an interest in. I was always the kid in class that was doodling, drawing, drawing. I mean, as a kid, I drew spaceships and battles and spacemen and all that other stuff. But I really enjoyed it, and I just stuck with it through my entire life. And as I got into my teen years, I got much more serious at it. That in high school, I was doing cartooning and painting and pointillism and all kinds of stuff. And I got to the point where I was doing, by my senior year, half my day, I was in art classes, and I was in something called directed individual study, which was basically just do what you want because you pretty much can do the art,
Wow.
And I had a great time in there. So I intended to be an artist. I wanted to be an artist, and I was accepted to Florida State University, and I started off at FSU as a fine arts major with every intention of being an artist. And of course, as you know, as you know, things changed some, at least at that point. But one of the reasons why I started looking for other options, though, was I wanted to be a fine artist. I didn't want to be into commercial art, graphic art, that, advertising, none of that. I wanted to be the painter type,
Oh, okay.
And the thing with that is you're either going to be filthy rich or you're going to be a starving artist. And the likelihood was I was going to be a starving artist, and I needed to have a job. So,
right.
So then that kind of opened up, other possibilities for me.
And that possibility was law enforcement, right?
It was. As a matter of fact, throughout my years as being a kid and growing up, I always thought police stuff was cool, but I just never thought like, well, this is something that I can do. It was just something that somebody else did.
Yeah.
Well, my brother-in-law went to FSU before me, and he became a cop down in Largo, Florida. And while I was in college and while I was searching and sort of re-examining my career, he asked me if I wanted to go for a ride along. And I thought, yeah, sure, why not? Whatever, that'd be fun. And it just sort of dawned on me. I'm like, wait a minute. If he can do this,
right.
I can do this. And this seems fun. And so that was during the summer between semesters. And I remember I went back home and my mom said, what'd you think? I said, Mom, I loved it.
Wow.
And of course she was like, oh no.
Right. Mom, yeah. The word mom. Yeah.
So when I went back to school, I got with my academic advisor and switched everything over, never intending to abandon art, but I knew I could always do that and still have a career,
Right.
So that's what put me on that path.
Yeah, those darn ride-alongs, man, they really get people's eyes opened. I wish they would do more just so people can see how it really is out there,
Yeah. Yep.
So, okay, so what age did you get into law enforcement then? How old were you?
I started when I was 23. I graduated. I graduated FSU in 1991, and when I was 21 years old, and so then I went to the police academy at what is now Seminole State College. It was Seminole Community College at the time, but it was the police academy there in Central Florida. And I a year later, about December of 1992, that's when I graduated that, and I started looking for a job. And that was during we had actually in 92, 91, 92, we had a big recession going on. And I remember I wanted to work for the first place I wanted to work for was Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office, because that's where my brother-in-law was working at that time.
Okay.
And I thought it'd be great to work together down there. And I was living in Seminole County, so I applied for Seminole County Sheriff's Office, Orange County Sheriff's Office. But there were so many applicants for so few positions.
Wow.
For instance, Hillsborough County had 1,000 applicants for 9 positions.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Seminole County had 500 applicants for 2. I don't even remember what the ratio was at Orange County. So I'm like, I have to be willing to move. I have to be willing to, maybe work for a smaller department or whatever, so I can get my foot in the door. And so I called. I said, well, I went to FSU. They have a police department, I think. And
Florida State University. Got it.
Yeah, so I called up there, and they said, yeah, we're hiring. I said, the first question I had was how many positions and how many applicants? They said, we have 5 positions open and 63 applicants. I'm like, wow, I actually might have a shot at this.
Yeah.
So I applied. A funny part of that story is during that summer, after I had graduated from the police academy, my sister was a manager of several Great Clips hair salons. She was a beautician cosmetologist, and I needed a job. So guess where I was working? I was working at the front desk of a salon.
Great Clips.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
And the funny part also was I was doing cartoons of everybody in there. So I was having a great time and stuff. But I remember though that I got the phone call after doing all my interviews at FSU. I got the phone call, and it was a person who worked there named Joanne. She worked the front as the administrative manager, and she said, "Hey, when do you think you might be able to come up here and get measured for your vest?" And I said, "Anytime." She said, "Okay, let's schedule that." But they hadn't told me I was hired yet.
Wow.
So I'm like, "So if I'm getting measured for my vest, am I getting hired?" She's like, "Yeah, they didn't tell you." I'm like, "No." So I went out there, and my sister was working, and I'm like, well, I quit,
Here's my notice. Bye-bye.
Yeah, they were really happy, but but that's how I got the word. Is they really didn't tell me. I had to ask them after they wanted to get sized for my stuff. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you were 23 when you got that job?
Yeah, I started
Okay.
February 26, 1993. I
Wow.
just turned 23. Yeah. I
Wow.
was,
That's
I was a kid.
amazing.
Yep.
That's amazing.
I had hair at the time, unlike now. Yeah.
We're the same age then, because yeah, 91 and 92, I was still in the military. Wow.
Yeah. It's just, yeah, it seems like yesterday, but it's like,
I know time does do that. It
yeah.
just goes by.
To my 13-year-old, it's ancient history. He says that's in the 20th century.
Oh yeah. Okay. Get a little smart.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Okay. So Florida State University PD, that's what it was called, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So what kind of jobs did you do there? Like what did you take on?
Yeah, well, I started off in patrol. It's actually a bigger agency now. I think they're up to about over 80 officers now.
Oh, okay.
Back then it was about 50. I think it was 54 officers.
Mm-hmm.
And you kind of picture it being like a small town.
And they're armed and they're sworn officers, right?
Armed sworn officers.
Okay.
Yeah, the whole thing. Yeah. And so I worked on patrol. And I got on bike patrol. I worked in investigations for a little bit. This is very early on. They did a thing where they called it an internship, where they would pull somebody off of patrol, let them work investigations for a while.
Okay.
I worked as an assistant to the training coordinator. Then I got into crime prevention, and crime prevention was the big boost for me, because when you're in crime prevention, you get to know everybody in your community, because you're always, doing stuff.
Right.
So I worked crime prevention. And from crime prevention, I got promoted to a shift commander. I was a sergeant. And then from sergeant, I went to, so I was a support services lieutenant, which was basically over crime prevention, over training, and over internal affairs. And from there, I ended up becoming an assistant chief. Later on, they reorganized it so it was a deputy chief. And that's when I ended up retiring. At 25 years, I was ready. A sergeant had told me, Sergeant told me, he said, Jim, he goes, if you can retire, do it.
Yeah, and absolutely.
So when it was time, I did the numbers, and it seemed to work out. And of course, then that art career was looming. I thought, I could do art with a pension check.
Yep.
And
good for you.
It seemed very appealing. And so, and I have to paraphrase this. So about 4 years before I retired, I sat there in the chief's office, and I said, Chief, at 25 years, I'm out of here, right? And I love the guy. His name's David Perry. I love the guy. We still stay in contact. And he goes, no, Jim. He goes, you can't leave. You got to do the DROP program, which is basically it's a retirement program that we have in Florida. That once you reach 25 years, you commit to work another 5 years. Then you got to be gone, but they help you with your build up a retirement.
Oh, okay.
But he said. He said, he goes, no, you got to stay. You can't just be here for 4 years. I said, well, Chief, I said the news is worse, because I said, really what that means is it really only means 3 years. I said, because that last year I'm not doing anything. I didn't quite say it like that, but
right.
But and sure enough, I was serious, and there was some going back and forth, but I was serious, and I'm glad I did.
Yeah, good for you.
Yeah.
So you did 25 years, and you retired as a deputy chief.
Right. Mm-hmm.
From Florida State University. Good for you. That's awesome.
Yep.
So then, so how long ago was that? That was just this past year?
Yeah, well, 2018. It's February 2018 when I finished.
Okay.
Yep.
And then how did you get right back into the art again? What did that look like?
Well, actually, and this actually goes into some of the mental health stuff that I've done, is I had always done art. I'd always done, throughout my career, I'd done art, not at the same rate that I'm doing it, but I kept doing it. But I knew as I was getting closer to retirement, one of the most important things is you have to have, post law enforcement career, you have to have a strong social base and a strong interest base and things that you can do and associate with that are not law enforcement.
Absolutely. Amen.
Yeah. And so that's so I started about 2016, started ramping up, doing more paintings, making connections. So by the time I was finished, by the time I had retired, I had already built up an inventory. I had honed my skills some more, and within 1 week of retiring, I was doing a live painting at the FSU president's house for a thing he was doing.
Wow!
Yeah,
a live painting. That's awesome.
Yeah, no pressure, right? Only the president of the university, and here,
Exactly.
yeah, and but so I started, within, a week, I threw myself into it. And I was very much also, I was very much also trying to change my persona as far as how I interacted with people as well. I wasn't, my friends and people that I worked with, it's like they would, my rank at FSU was major. It was deputy chief was my job.
Oh, okay.
The way our rank system worked is number 2 in command was a major.
Okay.
And so they would say, "Hey, major," like, "Hey, just call me Jim. I'm not a major anymore. I'm an artist."
Right.
I mean, so I'm still connected to my law enforcement roots, but it's important to me to make sure that I don't become defined by a career I had previously.
Yeah, that makes sense.
There's still going to be some of that, of course, and I embrace that. But I fully threw myself into the artwork.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, people still call me Sarge, and it's like, no, I'm just Tamara.
Yeah. See that? Yeah. My people I've worked with have said it feels weird to call you anything other than,
Yeah, I know, because that's how they know us, and that's fine. That's a respect thing.
My nickname when I was working as a cop was Buzzard.
Well, okay, what's the story with that?
Part of it's because I'm bald, and the second part is because once we were following a guy across campus, there was you kind of lurking after somebody that looks like they were up to no good, and me and another officer were kind of shadowing him to see if he was going to do something. And apparently, at one point, I don't remember this, but apparently at one point I stuck my neck out around a corner, and this other cop that I worked with, who was from Mayo, Florida. He goes, "Jim, you look just like a buzzard sticking his neck around the corner." And that was it. I was Buzzard.
That was it.
And Buzz, and that was it. Yeah. So, yeah.
Oh my gosh. So Major and Buzzard. Got it.
Yeah.
That's cool. So tell me a little bit more about your art. Is it painting with just like, what kind of paint is it? Is it acrylic paint? Is it on canvas? Like I'm not a very good, I can't talk about art. So go ahead and tell us what.
So I do. I try to have a very broad array of art, but mostly my favorite type of artwork is oil painting on canvas.
Okay.
And I do also acrylics. And it really depends. Just for me, is which one dries faster. Oil painting dries in about 2 weeks when you're done.
Oh,
if you need a fast turnaround on a painting, you can do acrylic, which dries in about 20 minutes.
Wow.
And I do all kinds of stuff. I do sea creatures. I do landscapes. I've done, honeybees and butterflies but I also do stuff that's more symbolic and surrealistic. I do some things that have been law enforcement oriented, mental health oriented. So I have kind of different forks in which I go in it. There's a commercial side where people want to buy things for decor. Okay. And then there's the side that I'm trying to communicate more emotionally. And
gotcha.
So I do that as well. It's fun. The funny part is sometimes I do some of these paintings that I say are just weird. And I think, I'm doing this purely for the artistic side of it. And then someone will want to buy it.
You never know. Yeah. That's incredible.
Makes me question my friendship, but, it's like one of my former cop friends, he says to me, he bought a painting I did of a lake that he lives on. And he goes, "Jim, I love your stuff." He goes, "But some of your stuff is just shocking." and I don't think it's
nice
shocking.
Way to put it.
Yeah, but he's bought a few of my paintings, so I don't think he's too disturbed. But
that's nice.
But like the other day, most of my stuff, though, that by and large, most of my stuff is sort of wildlife landscapes. Okay. I've done some boats. I like doing oceans. And my latest one that I did was just a couple penguins.
Wow.
Because people like animals, and so you put that stuff out there, and I try to make this stuff affordable.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been it's enjoyable for me. It's great therapy.
So would you paint anything for like law enforcement related items? For sale, or I mean, there's a lot of followers on my page that would probably love your art if it was like a cop car or a even like a soldier, even like a military.
Yep, I've done that. I did awesome. One actually that was it was an acrylic, and it was kind of done almost in kind of neon bright colors on a black background, but it was the shape of an officer.
Oh.
The whole the uniform and everything.
Mm-hmm.
It probably would have looked really good under a black light, but it was really neat looking though, and it was just called On Patrol. And it was a fairly big. It was 16 inches by 40 inches, and it ended up in that. And the purpose of that was to make that for first responders and law enforcement. And I've done 2 of those so far. I've done one that was law enforcement. I did one that was a nurse with angel wings on it.
Aww.
And so that's a series that I've been working on. So,
oh, nice.
And one of my former colleagues, she said, she goes, if you put a ponytail on that, I would have bought that. So,
oh, wow.
So I have
did it look like her or something, or?
No, it was just a guy, But
okay.
he was saying if you had made a female law enforcement officer,
yeah.
so of course I'm like,
right.
well, then that's in the queue. I'll do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's something I've definitely had in mind. I have an ink drawing that I did of we have something at FSU PD called the FSU Police Motorsports Team. Mm-hmm. Which is basically one of our guys is he's a sport bike racer. So because sports bikes are often involved in collisions, he created this training program where he actually brings people out to a racetrack and teaches them how to handle their bikes. And so wow. I did a ink drawing of him on his motorcycle leaning into a curb, which was really cool. So I've done a few law enforcement things. I've done some military stuff. I've done aviation art. So I've done a lot of like military aviation. So I try to stay as diverse as I can in different subjects.
So your website is jimrussellart.com, correct?
Yep. If you know my name and art, then you got the website.
So what if somebody is listening to this podcast right now and they're intrigued and they want a piece of art that that maybe they can't find on your website? Can they send you an email and ask you to paint it for them? Is that possible?
Yeah, I'm actually working 5 commissions right now.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, so what people will do is they'll ask me, "Can you do?" I do a lot of pets, right now. Right now, I'm doing somebody who lost their son in a car crash, which that one's I have to get that one perfect,
Oh yeah.
But what they'll do is they'll email me or they'll call me, and they'll ask, "Can you do this painting? Can I send you some pictures?" And we'll set it up, and I'll ask them what kind of canvas they want, what kind of paint, but I've done quite a few of those. Yep.
Wow, that is so interesting. Okay, we're going to take just a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to open up and talk about drunk drivers because you have an important but sad story to tell. So, Jim, we'll be right back.
All right.
If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. First of all, it's free. And there's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. Download the free Anchor app today or go to anchor.fm to get started. That's anchor.fm.
Are you interested in CSI or forensics? The Forensic Science Academy program has been recognized as the premier training program completely dedicated to students who are launching their forensic career. The Academy offers specialized hands-on training modules in basic and advanced crime scene investigation, forensic photography, fingerprint identification and classification, crime scene management, and coroner investigations. Instruction is offered in the form of weekend workshops, online courses, webinars, and seminars. Training at the Academy of Forensic Science will give students the competitive edge employers and agencies are looking for when hiring. Past graduates are now working as crime scene investigators, private investigators, forensic pathologists, coroner investigators, forensic nurses, forensic accountants, and even criminalists. The courses are taught by forensic professionals who are experts in the field and hold membership in the International Association for Identification and other professional forensic organizations. For more information, visit forensicscienceacademy.org. Again, that's forensicscienceacademy.org. I want to give a special shout out to the Blue Line podcast. They talk about everything from current conservative news and law enforcement news, mixed with critical issues impacting everyone across our beautiful nation. They take pride in providing listeners with education and life-saving training tactics, from gun safety to home invasion tips. So check them out today at thewiscoblueline.com. That's the WISCO blueline.com. Okay, we're back from break. Now I'm going to read something. It's like a statistic, and it's from cdc.gov. Every day, 29 people in the United States die in motor vehicle crashes that involve an alcohol-impaired driver. Now, I don't know how accurate that is, but I pulled that up yesterday, and I thought that was a lot. 29 people a day.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot to me. So anyway, go ahead and tell your story of your wife's son that involved a drunk driver.
Right. Well, I actually met my wife at the candlelight vigil they had on campus, on the FSU campus, for him after he died. His name was Matthew Beard. My wife's name is Connie, and he was a senior at FSU that was a major in biology, and he was going to be a marine biologist. And he had actually made a marine research discovery as an undergraduate and had been published, basically discovering that coral. He studied coral specifically, and he learned that coral polyps can actually respond to and seat themselves on different surfaces of a particular color, that they were more attracted to things that were red. So of course, you think about when you want to restore coral reefs, knowing what color to put down there, or what that was a big deal.
Right.
So he was very, very promising, and he had just been accepted to graduate school at the University of Miami. He was home for his final Christmas in 2006 in his senior year, and he, which as he often did, was going to go for a dive, scuba diving with his friends, and just before Christmas, and they were going to drive down to West Palm Beach and go for a dive and then come back in time for Christmas. And his mom at the time lived in Sanford, Florida, in Central Florida. And so she was working on scrapbooking and that sort of thing. And he went down I think it was around Delray Beach or so, and they were on I-95, and traffic, as is often on I-95, was backed up due to construction.
Yeah.
And they had slowed down and basically come to a stop in the traffic when a DUI driver hit them from behind at 90 miles an hour.
Oh my!
And
wow.
And he was drinking while driving. And so the car was struck, spun around, hit the inside median twice. And so basically Matt was sitting in the back seat and his head was being snapped back and forth, is basically the way we understand it. And he sustained a brainstem injury. He was conscious for a little bit, but then fell unconscious. He was airlifted to Delray Medical Center Trauma. And of course, Connie had, that night she said, Matt, when you get there, give me a call. And he hadn't called. So finally the phone rang, and she said she felt this relief that, oh, there he is. He's fine. He's there. They got a little held up, but it wasn't. It was her dad. And her dad was saying, Matt's been in a crash. You need to find a way to get down here. And of course, then it was, she had to get down there as fast as possible. The drunk driver, by the way, got out of the car, complained that he had hurt his finger, urinated in the roadway, threw his wine bottle away, just didn't care that he had done that.
Why are they always alive?
I know.
Don't get it.
Yeah. And so she got down there. He was in the trauma ICU in a coma for 8 days, and she stayed by his side. This is during the, over the Christmas holiday. She said one of the most heartbreaking parts of it was that she went to the chapel on Christmas Eve and she wanted to, she said, I'm going to get my Christmas miracle. They gave him a 5% chance of living. She said, I'm going to get my Christmas miracle. So she prayed all day. And when she basically got updated again from the nursing staff, the unfortunate part was that Matt had gotten worse and they needed to do a brain flow test. And I believe it was on the 27th that they said that he was brain dead, and that she was going to have to make the decision to stop life support. And she said the last gift that Matt ever gave her is he died on his own, and he didn't force her to make that decision because she said, I can't do it. Well, since that time, she's tough, and she is a fighter, and she resolved herself to become an advocate for DUI prevention. Now, simultaneously, while all this was going on, and I was at FSU, I had already been involved in DUI enforcement. I was the chair of the DUI strike force, which 5 agencies in our area would team up on DUI checkpoints and saturation patrols and that kind of stuff. And so when this had happened, we learned that there was going to be a candlelight vigil on campus on January the 20th, which was his birthday. And of course, we were going to send representation there. We were going to be there and represent the department and the university, and the president of the university was going to speak there. And so I just showed up and introduced myself, and I had another officer there that was our top DUI officer. And so we just gave our condolences. And I asked her, I reached out to her about, I think, a few days later, and I said, would you be opposed to us having a checkpoint in Matt's name? And she said, I would love to do that.
Nice.
And she ended up coming up and being at the checkpoint, talking to students,
Wow.
to the officers. And we just kind of started working more and more together in a professional way.
Mhm.
And we were friends for a long time. It wasn't until 2010 that she asked me out, because I had recently been, gotten divorced, and I was, I'm like, I'm not gonna go anywhere. It seemed weird to be like, I'm gonna ask a bereaved mom out. But we were talking on the phone at one point, and she said, do you want to go out sometime? I'm like, sure. And of course, the rest is history.
Oh, that's so awesome.
So we got married a year later, and we still have continued to do a lot of work together. And she's spoken in prisons and at universities,
Wow.
and of course I continue doing DUI stuff. But we've done our best to keep Matt's name out there as a representative of what can happen. And as a matter of fact, what we do through the art, by the way, is the FSU Marine Lab, where Matt did a lot of his work, has a scholarship in his name. It's the Award for Excellence
wonderful.
in Research, and some of the art that I sell that has to do with sea life and the magnets that Connie makes a bunch of magnets, and she sells those magnets. 100% of the magnet sales go to the scholarship, and 10% of my art sales for Sea Life goes to it. So we actually are trying to promote something that we knew Matt loved as well.
And what's the scholarship called again?
It's the Matthew Beard Memorial Award for Excellence in Research.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we still stay involved in DUI advocacy as well. And that we are both in the Speakers Bureau for We Save Lives, which is a nonprofit that was created by Candace Leitner, who was the creator of MAD. And we're really good friends with her, and so we do speaking for her and stay connected with her. And there's a lot of neat programs that they have. Like one of the things that you mentioned is you referred to a DUI crash as a crash, and that's great because we have a program that's called drop the A word, the accident word, because it's not an accident.
Right.
So we call it, just like they do on crash forms, crash, collision, wreck, all that stuff. It doesn't absolve the driver of the responsibility if they're driving impaired. So
you're right. It does say motor vehicle crash. It doesn't say motor vehicle accident.
Right. It used to say accident.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Huh. Wow.
So
how old was Matthew when he passed away?
He was 21.
21, senior at Florida
State University. Yep.
Oh gosh, what a waste.
And she actually has a website where she sells the magnets. It's called.
Oh, what is that?
It's called Mattson's Magnets. That's MATTSONS magnets.com. And Mattson's is a combination of Matt's name and my son Grayson's name. So it's Mattson's.
Oh, I like that.
She's got about 200 magnets. She makes them herself, and
Wow.
so the money all goes to the scholarship. So
100% of that money
100%
goes
of
to
it.
the scholarship, right? And there's 200 handmade.
just about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, good. I'll put that. I'll make sure I put those links on the podcast.
And I can send them to you as well, so you can have them.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, she's taken over. It's funny because we've got a great big master bedroom. It's just one of the neat features of the house. It's really big. Well, half of it now is basically her scrapbooking and magnet making studio. And she asked me the other day, can I get rid of my dresser so she can have more room?
Oh, that's awesome. I love her.
Yeah, she's cool.
That's so cool. How long have you guys been married?
Oh gosh, we've been married we were married in 2011, so next year will be 10 years. Yeah.
10 years. Wow, congratulations.
Thank you.
That's neat. See, everything works out the way it's supposed to. Yeah. I believe in that stuff.
She says that Matthew got us together. That was his.
He brought you together. Yep. He's up there smiling.
Yeah.
Awesome. I really appreciate your time today, and thank you for telling his story.
Thank you for asking about it very much.
Absolutely. And, I'll go ahead and put this on the podcast notes, but every time I put it on Twitter and Facebook, we'll also put both of the links on there so people can go look at your art and they can look at her magnets.
Great.
And also know that, the money is going toward that. So that's wonderful.
Excellent.
And so we'll also remind people that if they would like to buy specific art from you, like maybe law enforcement related, fire department, dispatcher, even anything like that, they can just send you an email through the website, correct?
Yeah, they can send me an email through the website and we'll get communicating and we'll figure it out and get it done for sure. Yeah.
So this is what I would do. I would be sending like a stick figure picture to you. And does that work though? I mean, I know we're laughing about it, but if somebody really has this vision of what they want, it's hard to describe that. So can they just draw a picture on a paper, like stick figure-ish?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Because what I'll do is, as I'm progressing in the painting, I'll send the updates to them. I'll say, here's how it's looking. Do you want any changes?
Okay.
Is this what you're envisioning? So by the time it's done, it's perfect. That there's no surprise. Unless they want to be surprised, but I wouldn't recommend that. So
No. Oh, it sounds so wonderful. Thank you for sharing all of this. I really appreciate it. And I thank you for your service, for 25 years of service.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And keep doing art. And your art gallery is where? Where is that located?
It is it's here in Tallahassee in something called the Railroad Square Art Park. Okay. And the actual address is 688 Industrial Drive. And that's in Railroad Square. So.
Well, hopefully when COVID is over, I can get there. That would be amazing.
Yeah. Love to have you.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time, Jim. I really appreciate it. And everyone, don't forget, I'm going to have the links to these wonderful pages on the episodes and on Twitter and on Facebook. So, Jim, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Of course. The Real Life Podcast was recorded and is being made available by Anchor.fm and its affiliates solely for the informational and entertainment purposes. The information, statements, comments, views, and opinions provided and/or expressed on the Real Life Podcast are entirely those of the host, guests, and callers, and are responsible for all show content and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the agencies and communities that the guests may serve. Some parts of the Real Life Podcast may contain adult content intended for people who are 18 years of age or older. Please listen responsibly.